that very warm welcome. Though I am usually a reluctant speaker, I am happy to be here tonight to introduce Tom. But first, I want to thank our daughters and their husbands, Gwen and Randy, Kate and Jade, for being with us here tonight. The newest member of our family, Charlie Allen Cresswell, couldn't be here tonight because he's only 3 months old. Maybe another time. I also want to take a minute to thank all of you. I have been just enormously gratified by all the words of encouragement and cards that I've received from you. Since learning that I had breast cancer, I have felt supported by an enormous community of friends, and that has made a really large difference. I'm over halfway through my chemotherapy now. I receive wonderful care, and never once have I felt afraid or alone. And for that, I want to thank my family, and Tom's staff have been wonderful, and all of you. Thank you very, very much. Family is vitally important. In so many ways, Tom is a lot like his parents. His dad, a World War II veteran, protested early and publicly against the Vietnam War. Charlie was never afraid to speak his mind. When Jewish people were excluded from a social club in Portland, he got the city council to refuse to renew their liquor license until they changed their policy. Likewise, Tom has never been afraid to do the right thing. When he was at Bowdoin, he led his fraternity out of the national organization because it discriminated against blacks. We know how in Congress, after much deliberation, he followed his conscience and stood against his own party's leadership to vote against the invasion of Iraq. Of that vote, and his parents also would have been too. Years ago, I told Tom that he takes on no small projects. The universal health care plan that he proposed this week shows that he is not afraid to tackle the most difficult challenges. I mention these examples to show that Tom has the values, the courage, and the leadership ability that we need and deserve in Washington. When we were dating in high school, neither of us would ever have dreamed that we would be doing this 45 years later. Thank goodness, or I would have run in the other direction. But here in fact we are on this very important and exciting night for Tom, the state, and the country. I'm so happy to give you my husband, my partner, and my best friend, the next Democratic senator from the great state of Maine.
Taught everyone in the family what strength and courage in adversity looks like. And I want to thank her, obviously, for those very kind words. And also I want to thank all of you for your love and support for the woman I love. Later in these remarks, I'm going to talk about my plan for universal health care. But for Diana and me, our experience has strengthened our determination to ensure that every family has a family doctor and that everyone in Maine can get the care they need when they need it. Right on. I want to recognize recognize Tom Ledoux. I mean, I can completely understand how excited he is to be engaged in a campaign in this incredibly pivotal and exciting year. And I also want to thank Dick Durbin, who we'll introduce in a few minutes, for coming from Illinois to be here, the #2 man in the United States Senate, a terrific Democrat, a great American. We're going to be very, very pleased to hear from him. Well, a few things. The Bush-Cheney administration and its congressional allies, as you know, have weakened this country at home and abroad. Their politics and priorities have divided Americans against each other, undermined our economy, and cost us respect around the globe. This is our moment for change. As you all know, our state's motto is "Dirigo, I lead." And I want Maine to lead the change this country needs. Maine will lead by helping to elect a Democratic president, for a starter. We have two extraordinarily gifted presidential candidates who have gone all the way through this presidential primary process, and whatever the pundits say, we will unite around our nominee. Going to lead America by strengthening the Democratic majority in the Senate so a Republican minority here can no longer filibuster the change we need in this country. And Maine is going to lead America by electing Democrats to the House in Washington, to the State House in Augusta, and to leadership in local communities across the length and breadth of the state of Maine. Now, the Maine media may be focused on Senator Susan Collins and me, but this Senate race is really not about us. It's about you, each one of you, your families, your children, your grandchildren. It's about the lobsterman in Rockland, the farmer in Van Buren, and the working mother in Auburn who can't find decent health care they can afford for their families. It's about the workers in Old Town, Pittsfield, Guilford, and most recently in Millinocket, laid off because of soaring fuel costs and bad trade deals that sent their jobs overseas. It's about the parents in Standish, Bucksport, and Kingfield who want their kids to have the opportunity to go to college. It's about the truckers, farmers, fishermen, and small businesses and families from Lubec to Elliott, from Freiburg to Belfast, whose fuel costs have soared for the past 7 years. This election is about important choices between competing sets of ideas, between failed policies or a new direction, the status quo or change, fear or hope. This year, Maine people have an extraordinary opportunity and a great responsibility, because getting a working majority for change in the United States Senate depends on a handful of states, and Maine is one of the few that will determine the future direction of the country. I respect Susan Collins, and I know she cares about the state of Maine. But Susan Collins and I fundamentally disagree on the most important issues that our country faces today. That's why I decided to get into this race. Those disagreements are on the record, in plain view, for anyone who looks at what we've done in the last 12 years in Congress. I voted against the Iraq War in 2002, and she voted for it. I believe we need to end this war. She hopes our position will improve. I believe we need to set a firm deadline to bring our troops safely and responsibly home from Iraq. She doesn't. As George Mitchell demonstrated in bringing peace to Northern Ireland, a deadline will maximize pressure on the leaders of the different factions in Iraq to compromise their political differences and begin rebuilding their own country. Susan Collins is now the only member of the Maine delegation who continues to support an open-ended commitment for the president's failed policies in Iraq. Now, Maine people have very high standards for our senators. From the day you sent me to Congress, I stood up to the powerful interests like the big drug, insurance, and oil companies who put profit before people, and sometimes even profit before patriotism. Earlier this year, Congress approved legislation that Congressman John Tierney of Massachusetts and I wrote to establish an independent bipartisan commission to investigate and punish waste, fraud, and profiteering in Iraq and Afghanistan by Halliburton and KBR. Our legislation was modeled on Senator Harry Truman's legendary work during World War II to uncover waste and fraud in Army contracting. Similar legislation on Iraq was blocked by all the Republicans in the United States Senate in 2005 and 2006. Investigations into Iraqi reconstruction should have started 5 years ago when Senator Collins was first urged to hold hearings on no-bid, cost-plus, billion-dollar contracts for Halliburton and KBR. As chair of the Chief Oversight Committee of the United States Senate, that was quite simply her job. 2 weeks ago, she told WGME Channel 13 that she didn't hold hearings on waste, fraud, and abuse because they would have been, and I quote, partisan political theater. Susan Collins and I disagree about that. It's not partisan political theater to ask why Halliburton was overcharging American taxpayers by hundreds of millions of dollars for oil brought in from Kuwait or meals served to our troops. That was her job. It's not partisan political theater. It's not partisan political theater to demand that KBR officials explain why they provided water to our troops in Baghdad that was contaminated with E. coli and coliform bacteria. That was just her job. It's not partisan political theater to find out why KBR was burning $85,000 trucks in the desert for lack of a spare tire, or why $9 billion in American currency for reconstruction projects went missing in 2004. That was her job. Senator Collins' job was not so much to show up for every vote, but to stand up for the American taxpayer and the American soldier instead of private contractors in Iraq. Susan Collins and I disagree about the Bush administration's economic policies that reward the wealthiest Americans over the hard-working middle class. She supports those policies, and I don't. I voted against the unfair Bush tax breaks for the very wealthy because they benefited the very rich at the expense of the middle class and have created the largest budget deficits in our nation's history. John McCain said in 2001, quote, "I cannot in good conscience support a tax cut in which so many benefits go to the most fortunate among us at the expense of middle-class Americans who most need tax relief." Now, as Barack Obama recently said about Senator McCain's conscience, he got over it. Olivia Snow called the second Bush tax plan in 2003, quote, "a $1 trillion tax cut masquerading at $350 billion, and she voted against it. Well, Senator Snow and Senator McCain, believe it or not, in that case, they were right, and Senator Collins was wrong. You know, today it's hard to find anyone in Maine who thinks that the Bush economic policies have been good for this state. So Susan Collins and I simply disagree about those policies. We also disagree about energy policy. In 2005, she voted for the Cheney energy bill, which moved $14 billion in tax breaks and incentives to the oil and gas industries. They didn't need them then, and they surely don't need them today. In Congress, I've been consistently pushing for energy independence, investment in alternative fuels and renewable sources, and greater conservation and efficiency measures to reduce demand for oil and curb global warming. Now, health care. I've been in Congress for 12 years, so has Senator Collins. I don't have a clue what her position is on health care issues, which tells you something. This week, I rolled out my plan for universal coverage so that all of our citizens can have access to quality, affordable health care. There are 47 million Americans who don't have health insurance, and millions more are underinsured, like Bob and Suzanne Kelly, who I talked with in Bangor just yesterday, who have a $15,000 deductible. That's what they've got for health insurance. This is fundamentally fundamentally unfair in the richest country on earth, and we have to change it. It's fundamentally unfair, but there are other reasons. If we want to strengthen the economy, we have to fix health care. If we want to support small business, we have to fix health care. If we're going to compete globally, we have to fix health care. We've been in this crisis for years. We know what the problems are. We need a bold, dramatic solution, and that's what my plan offers. Let me tell you a little about my plan. It preserves what is best about our current healthcare system. It guarantees that all Americans, including the self-employed and owners and employees of small businesses, will be able to purchase a quality plan that is affordable and best for them. Under my plan, every American will have new options and choices, but Americans who like their current healthcare coverage can keep it. My plan assures that businesses and workers will have access to coverage like the options now available to members of Congress and other federal employees. We're also going to change the rules of the road when it comes to insurance companies. They're going to have to compete for business on the basis of cost and quality, not by profiting from and discriminating against people because of age or pre-existing conditions. That is a big change. My plan recognizes that our nation's future depends on all of us, every American and every American business doing our part and paying our fair share to assure that we can all have quality health care at an affordable price. You see, I strongly believe that when we work together, we can accomplish amazing things. I learned that growing up here in Maine. My commitment to public service is rooted in the example set by both of my parents. It is grounded in my home life with Diana, raising our two daughters here in Maine, and in friendships I have valued since childhood. And with the birth in February of Charles Allen Cresswell, our first grandchild, I see the future and what's at stake more urgently than ever before. Susan Collins and I see the world very differently over the last 12 years, and in the last 12 years we've made very different choices for Maine. And I trust Maine voters, with your help, of course, with your help, to decide which of us can do more for Maine in the Senate in the future. So when you go to talk to people outside this room, this is what I hope you will say. If you think that the Bush economic policies have been worked for you in the country, vote for Susan Collins. But if you think tax cuts for the middle class, support for small business, and investment in people and infrastructure is the better path, then vote for Tom Allen. If you believe we need to keep our troops in harm's way in Iraq and keep spending $12 billion a month in an endless religious civil war, then vote for Susan Collins. But if you believe we need to set a deadline to bring our troops home, then vote for... If you trust John McCain to solve our health care crisis, then vote for Susan Collins. But if you believe we need universal, affordable health care for every person in Maine, then vote for If you want more right-wing judges like Sam Alito, then choose the candidate who voted to confirm him. Vote for Susan Collins. But if you value your civil liberties, women's productive freedom, the rights of our GLBT citizens, and a host of other issues that come before the federal courts, then vote for If you agree with the Cheney energy bill that gave billions to big oil at a time when they had record profits, then vote for the incumbent who voted for that bill, Susan Collins. But if you believe, as I do, that it's time for real action on energy independence and global warming, vote for... Decades from now, my grandson, Charlie, my grandson Charlie's generation will look back at 2008 as a pivotal year for Maine and America. I want his generation to see that when the future of America, the prospects for the middle class, our global reputation, and the fate of the planet all hung in the balance, we built a team for change. A team that brought Americans together again and restored our nation to its rightful mission as a land of opportunity and a force for progress and peace in the world. We can do that. We can do that. Let me end with a story. I played football during high school and Bowdoin College, and there's nothing I prefer to do. I love watching the New England Patriots on television. In 2002, when the Patriots first went to the Super Bowl in the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady era, Dick Gephardt was then the Democratic leader in the House. He was a big St. Louis Rams fan. He was very excited. The St. Louis Rams were 17-point favorites, and he and his wife Jane went to the game. They sat in the stands. And they were convinced St. Louis was going to win because 17-point favorites, you know what had to happen. And then, of course, the St. Louis Rams were introduced, and they ran out onto the field, and in the usual way, individually, one by one, as they were introduced. And then the announcer said, the Patriots have chosen to be introduced as a team. And they all ran out onto the field together. And Dick turned to Jane and he said, we're going to lose this game. We're going to lose this game. And they did. And the Patriots won that game, and they've kept on winning, with an exception here or there. They've kept on winning. They kept on winning because for every individual on the team is more important. The team is more important than that individual. It is fundamental to how they play the game. In Maine and America, in an era of global competition, we are going to win as a team or we're going to lose. It is that simple, and I know what the answer is. We're going to win as a team. Begins with each one of you. I ask each of you to reach out from now until Election Day to every city and town and neighborhood in Maine, to Democrats and Independents and Republicans, to build our team for change, not just for our party or even our state, but for all Americans. That is how Maine will seize this moment and this year to help elect a Democratic president and give America a working majority for change in the United States Senate. Thank you for all that you do. Together, we're going to win this election and deliver